At my promotion celebration, my family showed up uninvited with a lawyer. They shoved a family trust contract in my face, demanding control over my income, career, and even my future children. They called it just a formality and had the audacity to say, "You owe us everything you have." This was after they publicly humiliated me at my lowest point last year, calling me a worthless piece of trash. I laughed in their faces, and then I did what they had feared for years. Now, they're bombarding me with 50 messages. "Please talk to us. We're begging." Okay, so I don't really post here much, but this is so next level that I honestly need to get it out somewhere. Maybe people will have thoughts, or maybe I just need to vent before I decide how far I'm going to go with this. This is long, but I'll try to keep it moving. Also, yeah, I write messily. That's just how my brain is right now. Quick context. I'm Finn, 27 years old, living in a somewhat boring apartment out in the suburbs. Nothing dramatic. I have a job, not super high-powered or anything crazy, but this year I finally got a promotion after dealing with a lot of nonsense. Don't ask. It's boring. I'm not rich, but for my family, I'm basically the one who can save everyone. Apparently, my parents are those people who always have a new plan, but none of them ever work, while my siblings just float along. As the oldest, I bear all the pressure and expectations like it's my birthright. My family has always had this thing. If you're not making money or doing something impressive, whatever that means to them, you're basically invisible or, worse, you get roasted non-stop. Last year, I lost my job and was barely getting by. At a family gathering, they literally called me a worthless piece of trash. Not exaggerating. My dad actually said it to my face while my mom stood there nodding. My sister Sure scrolled through her phone, and my brother Brian looked slightly embarrassed but didn't say anything. I guess I just got used to being the one they dumped on until I had money again. Fast forward to now. I finally got this promotion. Nothing huge, but it's the first time in a while that I actually felt proud of myself. So, I decided to do something low-key, a backyard thing at my friend Benjamin's place. Just some food, music, and a few people I actually like. I didn't invite my family at all. Not out of spite. Well, maybe a little, but mostly because I just didn't want to deal with them. It was supposed to be relaxed. Here's where it gets strange. I was standing outside talking to Benjamin and a couple of others when I saw a random black SUV pull up. I didn't recognize anyone at first, but then I saw my mom get out in a weirdly formal outfit, like she was going to a graduation. My dad was right behind her wearing a blazer, which he never does. Sure was trailing along, looking annoyed, and Brian was just staring at the ground. Then this guy I vaguely remembered from years ago, Mr. Easton, who used to show up at family holidays giving advice about money, stepped out. Turns out he's a lawyer now, or at least that's what my mom says whenever someone fights over grandma's will. Right off the bat, it felt super awkward. Benjamin came over and said, "Hey, I didn't know your family was coming." I shrugged because I didn't either. My mom barely said hi. She just hugged me like it was a job interview and started complimenting the house, the food, and asking who paid for what. My dad started talking about the grill like he wasn't even there for me. Sure was already on her phone posting pictures of the party she wasn't invited to. I kind of laughed it off, thinking maybe they just wanted to say congrats and then leave. But then Easton, the lawyer, started setting up paperwork on the patio table, literal folders and pens. Everyone else was staring, and it got super tense really fast. My mom tried to put on a fake smile and said they had a little surprise for me, a quick family thing before they left. My dad said it was no big deal and that I should just sign so we could all move on. Easton slid a thick packet across the table, full of tabs and highlighted sections like it was some kind of legal treasure hunt. I picked it up and flipped through it, and it was honestly absurd. It had lines about how my future earnings and potential legacy assets were to be managed by the family trust, with my parents as trustees. There was even a section about future children's education being under the trust's guidance. I'm not even dating anyone, lol. I kept waiting for someone to say it was a joke, but nope. My mom got emotional, saying how they built me and that I owed them everything I had. My dad, who hadn't looked me in the eye all year, suddenly cared enough to say I wouldn't be anywhere without them. Easton just sat there with a smug smile, tapping his pen. Sure was recording on her phone, which was just unreal. Brian finally looked up and said, "I don't know, maybe it's not a terrible idea," which kind of stung. I just started laughing out loud because what else was I supposed to do? I told them they couldn't be serious, and my mom started crying, saying I was being ungrateful and making a scene. My dad leaned in, not yelling, but using that voice he does when he wants to make me feel small. He said, "You're nothing without us. Don't forget that." I looked up, and it felt like half the party was watching now. Benjamin stood with his arms crossed, ready to step in but not wanting to make it worse. Someone else tried to lighten the mood, but my mom ignored them. Easton started talking about legal obligations and how this was standard for high-potential families. I asked him if he'd ever actually read the contract, and he just shrugged, saying, "It's not about me, it's about protecting the family." My hands were shaking at this point. Not because I was scared, but because I was furious. I knew they were only doing this now because I was finally in a good position again, and they wanted a piece before I could do anything for myself. They didn't care about me. If I had nothing, they'd still be calling me trash. So I pushed the contract back at Easton, maybe harder than I meant to, and it slid off the table. My dad stood up so fast that the chair tipped back. He grabbed my arm, not hard, but enough to make a point. I told him to let go, and he did, but not before saying I was making a huge mistake. My mom was actually sobbing now, and sure was filming her mother crying, which was insane, while Brian just stared at the ground again. I told them if they wanted to talk, they could call me like normal people, but I wasn't signing anything. Some guests started drifting away, and Benjamin came over, saying, "Maybe it's best if we take a break." My dad slammed the gate on his way out. Sure was still recording, and Easton gathered up the papers like he lost a poker game. My mom sat in the car and refused to look at me, while Brian hung back. He almost said something, then just left. After they were gone, people whispered, and someone asked if I was okay. I just shrugged. I was angry, but honestly, I was also kind of relieved it happened in front of everyone. Now I didn't have to pretend they were normal. Benjamin offered to let me crash in the spare room, but I just wanted to go home. When I got back to my apartment, my phone had, no joke, like 20 unread texts and a bunch of missed calls. My family group chat was blowing up. My mom had sent at least 3 guilt-trip voicemails, and my dad sent a picture of the contract with "final offer" typed beneath it, like it was a Craigslist deal. Even Sure sent a video of the whole thing to our cousin Sarah, who was already texting me, asking what the hell happened. I wasn't even tired, just angry. I didn't care if they were upset. They wanted to make me feel like garbage when I was down, and now they wanted to own everything I'd worked for. Nah, I was done being the one who fixed everything for them. If they wanted war, fine. I'd give them something to regret. I haven't answered any of them. Part of me wants to see how long it takes for them to start begging. But I already know what I'm going to do next. They just don't realize who they're dealing with now. Update 1. So I'm back because honestly, things just keep getting more unhinged. And I won't lie, this is even wilder than I expected. I wasn't actually going to post an update. It felt kind of cringe, but after last night, yeah, I have to. I thought the first round was bad, but this is a whole new level of petty and desperate. Fair warning, I'm not holding back, and this is probably going to get long. After the whole family showed up with the lawyer and tried to get me to sign my life away at my own party, I went home and tried to ignore it. I figured if I waited them out, maybe they'd leave me alone. Yeah, that didn't happen. I woke up the next morning to my phone blowing up. Texts, missed calls, my mom leaving crying voicemails, my dad sending these weird final offer texts like he was negotiating for a used car. Sure tagged me in a random Instagram story, which was literally just a picture of the trust contract with a clown emoji on it. Thanks for that, I guess. Brian sent one text that just said, "Call me," and then nothing else. What really set me off wasn't even all the calls. It was this dumb little thing. My banking app pinged me, saying my parents' mortgage autopay failed. Not because I didn't have the funds, but because they tried to bump up the payment without telling me, like they thought if they just adjusted the numbers, I wouldn't notice or would just accept it. Classic. So I called the bank, told them to freeze any changes to payments from my account, and set everything to manual. If they want money, they have to actually ask me for it now. And yeah, I fully realize I sound like a jerk here, but context. I've been covering half their mortgage for years because my dad got laid off and never really bounced back. Never once got a thank you, just more pressure and more "you owe us" comments to extended family, like I was some kind of trust fund baby. They act like I should be grateful for the opportunity to help them. It's never enough. So I started thinking, if they want to play hardball with contracts and lawyers, fine. I can do paperwork too. I pulled up the docs for the house, because plot twist, my name is actually on the deed. Long story, but when they were about to lose the house a few years back, I co-signed and paid off part of the back debt. I never really thought about it until now, but if they're going to try to control my life, why shouldn't I put the same squeeze on them? I emailed our family's old lawyer, not Easton, someone who actually does boring stuff like property transfer, and asked what my options were. I wasn't trying to evict anyone. I just wanted to know if I could force a buyout or if I had to list my share for sale. Turns out I technically can. Even just threatening to do it would mess up their credit and force them to refinance. So yeah, I let that info sit for a day before doing anything. Meanwhile, Sure is blowing up my phone, half threatening, half begging. Classic sibling move. She's all, "You're ruining everything." Then she's saying, "Please just talk to mom. She's not eating." I text back, "When you all tried to humiliate me, you weren't worried about how I felt." She leaves me on read. Brian calls. I pick up. He starts in about how this is all just a misunderstanding and Dad was just stressed. I ask if he actually read the contract. He says he only skimmed it. I tell him to read the part about future children and lifetime asset management. He just says, "Oh," then hangs up. Then my dad tries to come by my place again. This time he bangs on the door and yells through it. I tell him to go home. He won't leave. So I text the building manager, who already knows the deal from last time, and they come up to tell him to leave. He slaps the door and stomps off. Neighbors saw, and now I get the side eye in the elevator. Fun. After that, Sure tries the surprise visit thing at my place too. I hear her voice in the hallway arguing with someone. Then she pushes past a neighbor and knocks on my door like 5 times in a row. I open it just a crack. She tries to push her way in. I hold the door with my foot and tell her to chill. She says she just wants to talk. I say I'm not doing this. She starts crying and calls me a selfish jerk, then storms off, slamming the stairwell door so hard I can hear it from inside my apartment. The next day, I go to get groceries and see Brian sitting in his car out front. He gets out, walks over, and says he just wants to talk. I say, "Now you want to talk? Where were you when they called me trash last year?" He says it's not fair. He was just trying to keep the peace. I shrug and tell him to keep the peace with them, not me, and walk off. He doesn't follow. Meanwhile, my phone is a disaster. I have text after text, missed calls, emails, even a handwritten note under my door at one point. No idea who actually left it. Probably my mom. They're all variations of the same thing. "I'm ruining the family, I'm going to regret it," or "Please just talk to us, we need you." My dad says I'm breaking the chain, whatever that means. The lawyer, Easton, is still in the mix, but now he's just sending these half-baked threats. I got a letter in the mail that looked official but basically just said, "Please reconsider for the good of the family." I tossed it. My actual lawyer friend, not family, said there's nothing they can do unless I break any laws, which I'm not. I'm just enforcing boundaries, and they aren't used to that. Even Benjamin, my friend who hosted the party, texts me, "Dude, your parents showed up here again looking for you. What's going on?" I tell him just to ignore them. He says, "Okay," but I can tell he's weirded out by the whole thing. I guess I am too, to be honest. But I'm not going to let that stop me. The worst was probably last night when my mom called, crying. I picked up because I was tired of the notifications, thinking maybe she'd finally just say sorry or something. Nope. She just said, "You don't know what you're doing. You're tearing us apart. You need to fix this." I said, "I'm not fixing anything. I'm just not letting you run my life." She sobbed and then hung up. I don't know. Maybe this is what happens when you stop being the fixer in a family like this. I'm not saying I did everything right, and yeah, part of me wonders if I should have just ignored them and let it fade. But every time I see that contract in my inbox, I remember what they said when I was broke. They only care when there's something in it for them. I'm done playing the nice guy. So now they're officially panicking. Mortgage overdue, car insurance canceled, streaming services dropped, and investment club money pulled. My name's still on the house, so they can't even refinance without me. My dad's calling every hour, my mom's sending guilt trip emails, and Sherry's subtweeting while Brian's ghosting everyone. I'm not sure what's next. It feels like we're not even close to the bottom yet, and I know the next family event, if there even is one, is going to be a disaster. But I'm not stopping. If they want to see what it's like when I'm not the doormat, they're going to get the full experience. The next step is showing up in person and making them actually face what they've done. I'm not looking forward to it, but it has to happen. I want them to see in real life what it looks like when their golden ticket punches back. Final update. Okay, so I guess this is going to be my last update on this entire mess unless something actually explodes. And to be honest, I wouldn't even be shocked at this point. I honestly thought it couldn't get any messier than last week. Wrong. If you ever wonder what happens when you take away every bit of power from people who only ever wanted to control you, just read this. It started off weird, like always. I woke up to my phone blowing up, unread messages from every family member. My mom's number popped up every hour, Dad's too, then Sher's. Even Brian, who had been ghosting me, suddenly sent a one-liner like, "You're going too far." But what really caught my attention was a message from the lawyer, Easton, that simply said, "You need to come to the house." Not a threat, not a demand, just that. Kind of threw me off. So, I decided I was done dragging this out. I picked a time and texted the group I'd be there in an hour. No one answered, which was a first. I got in my car, and the whole drive, I half expected the house to be empty or locked up, or maybe a total circus with the local church group holding hands on the lawn or something. It wasn't that, but it was close. I pulled up, and the first thing I saw was my dad's old recliner, actually out on the front yard. Then another chair. Then the coffee table, all just dumped there, not even in a pile, just scattered. It was ridiculous. My dad was out there, shirtless, pacing and yelling into his phone. I could hear him from the curb, saying something about how I was tearing the family apart, while neighbors peeked through their blinds. My mom was sitting on the grass, dressed still in her outfit from the night before, crying. Sher was standing in the driveway, arms folded, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Brian was nowhere to be found. I got out, and my dad spotted me. He threw his phone at the porch, missed, and started yelling before I even reached the sidewalk. He was in full meltdown mode, saying I ruined everything and screaming about how he built this house and how I was trying to take it from him. He began kicking at the furniture and then tried to block the walkway, arms out, yelling that I wasn't welcome there. I told him I was only there for the paperwork, nothing else. He shoved me, not hard, but enough to make it clear he wasn't playing. I didn't move. My mom was sobbing, saying, "Please just sit and talk. We're family. You're all we have." I told her, "I already tried talking. You just wanted me to sign away my life." She grabbed my hand, trying to pull me down next to her, but I shook her off. Sher was back in the doorway, yelling at both of us to stop, then kicked the side of the mailbox. She slammed the car door and sat in the passenger seat, blasting music through her earbuds loud enough that I could hear the bass. Neighbors were watching. One of them, Elizabeth, was out on her porch pretending to water her plants but clearly just taking it all in. She waved when I looked over, then quickly looked away. I didn't care anymore. So, I went inside. The living room was trashed. Half the furniture was outside, and the rest was just scattered. There was a stack of envelopes on the table. My dad barged in behind me, slammed the door, and told me not to take anything from them. I grabbed the paperwork, property docs, bank statements, all the things the lawyer said I needed to move forward with the buyout or sale. I told them, last chance. If you want to buy my half, do it now. If not, it goes on the market. My dad tried to rip the folder out of my hands. I pulled back. He swung, and it glanced off my shoulder. I didn't even react. I was so done. My mom came in begging again, saying they were losing everything, that if I cared at all, I'd stop. I told her, if you cared, you wouldn't have tried to own me. Sure was back in the doorway, saying I was a monster. I looked at her and said, this is what happens when you treat people like garbage. She slapped the doorframe and stormed out, slamming the door. My dad followed her, still yelling. I sat at the table and started sorting through the paperwork. Mom was still crying, repeating, please, please, over and over. I ignored her and texted my lawyer, telling him I had everything ready to move forward. I walked out past my dad, who was throwing a chair into the street. Neighbors were definitely filming now. My mom was collapsed on the lawn, and Sure was in the car with her head down. Dad was still raging. I got in my car, and my phone started buzzing before I even turned the key. First it was Sure, then my mom, then Dad. All the notifications started stacking up. Calls, voicemails, texts. I drove off, and it didn't stop. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had like 50 missed calls and more voicemails than I wanted to check. I finally listened to one, and it was my mom, voice shaking, just begging, please, please, we need you. Please just pick up. We'll do anything. The next one was my dad, screaming through tears. The next was Sure, half crying and half cursing me out. I blocked their numbers, then unblocked and blocked them again. Not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted them to know I could. I wanted them to see I was done and that they didn't get to control me anymore. If that meant they spiraled, fine. They made this bed. I'm not crawling back. So yeah, that's where it's at. The house is going on the market if they don't buy me out. I'm not paying another cent for them. I'm not fixing anything or answering their messages. Let them beg. Let them rage. Let them see what it feels like to lose control for once. I used to feel bad about thinking this way, but now, after all this, not even a little. They wanted everything. Now they get nothing. I hope they remember that the next time they try to break someone down and call it family. Done.